What's happening, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of SWACtalk, the show where we cover the SWAC inside and out. I am your tour guide around the SWAC Sea Wells, coming at you, and we're gonna go ahead and break down Week 7. We're gonna preview Week 7. We are in the midst of the SWAC race. This week is the first week of full SWAC action. 6 games on the schedule, all are SWAC games. So we will talk about these games, and we're gonna see what happens. Before we get started, as usual, you can check out the socials: facebook.com/SWACtalk, instagram.com/SWACtalk, SWACtalk76@gmail.com. If you would like to donate and support the show, you can hit the Cash App, $SWACtalk. Check out the channel since you're already here. If you haven't done so already, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're growing pretty fast. We're on the march to 400, so let's continue to do that, man. I appreciate everybody love and support, so let's continue to grow. Thank you. Like the video, share them. Feel free to comment. Let me know who you think gonna win in this week's games. A lot of action on the schedule. A lot of teams are moving in different directions. So we're going to go ahead and start this thing off, and we're going to start it off with the Southern Arkansas Pine Bluff game. Southern goes to UAPB for a 2 o'clock kickoff. That game is on ESPN+. It also can be heard on the UAPB Sports Network. So both these teams come in. They're both reeling, but in different ways. Southern comes in right now at 2-3, 1-1 in conference. And they are playing very well offensively. They are doing what Southern does offensively. They run the ball. They lead the league in rushing right now with over 222 yards, 222.4 to be exact, and over 5 yards per carry, 5.4 on the season. So Southern does what Southern does. They run the football and they do it well. Their passing game is efficient. It's not great. But it's efficient. It does what it's supposed to do. With a team that runs the ball like they do, the passing attack is there to keep teams honest. Now, if Southern has to line up and pass the ball an entire game, that is not their forte. So they want to be able to run the ball so they can use their play action and get the ball to the tight ends and receivers who are starting to step up this season and backs out of the backfield. So right now, Southern's averaging 778 yards per game through the air, 9 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. And total offense, Southern is averaging 401 yards per game in total offense, 6.3 yards per play. And that's the good thing. Now, the bad thing for Southern is the other side of the ball. Defensively, this team has been erratic, unreliable at times. They have made plays. You know, there have been stretches where the defense got stops, but not enough really for you to feel comfortable if you're a Southern fan when that defense is on the field. The talent is there. I guess, you know, they made some scheme changes this season, and guys have been moved to positions that they haven't normally played. So there are some issues there, but this team does have talent on defense. It's gonna be these last few weeks is gonna be an issue of, can they start to make some stops? Can they get guys on the ground when they need to? You know, are they gonna be able to tackle in space? Are they gonna continue to allow big plays? They're getting hit for a total for 176.8 yards per game on the ground, 4.5 yards per carry. They have allowed 13 touchdowns on the season. As well as Southern runs the ball, they only have 9 rushing touchdowns. So the defense is giving up a ton of touchdowns on the ground. And they're getting hit fairly hard on the ground as well. Passing, the opponent's 234 yards per game, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So Southern is not getting any turnovers through the passing game. They're not getting turnovers really at all as a whole. They only have 5 turnovers on the season. As a defense compared to them having 9. So they have a negative turnover ratio. So that's another thing that's hurting them. Although the turnover issue hasn't been that bad the last couple of weeks, they did have a costly fumble against Texas Southern and interception in a Hail Mary situation. So they are starting to find their way of taking care of the ball as an offense. Defensively, they're just not turning people over. They're allowing 411 yards per game as a defense, 6 yards per play. And that's just, like I said, now some of these numbers, you can say, yeah, they played Troy, but, these last few weeks, they've given up yardage and points. Not so much crazy amounts of points, but they've given up points and pretty solid yardage to teams. So that's something that definitely is going to have to be fixed moving forward. Third down conversions, 38% for the offense and 55% on fourth downs. The defense is allowing a 51% conversion rate on third down. I don't care how much talent you say you have on the defense. If you're allowing a team to convert third downs for over 50% of the time, you're gonna lose. I mean, it's hard to get stops if you cannot get off the field on third downs. So that's probably more than anything that this defense has to do besides tackle better and not get as many targeting penalties is stopping teams on third down. That's just something that they have to really do. They have to start stopping teams on third down. They're allowing 36% on fourth down, so they are better on fourth down stops. But teams aren't getting the fourth down that often to attempt a fourth down conversion. So they have to find a way to get teams off the field. Southern's offense is more than capable of extending drives and going on long drives. But that does you no good if the opponent gets the ball and marches down the field and scores. So that's pretty much the biggest issue for this team. Defensively, they have 11 sacks on the season, 8 for the opponents. That number is probably not as high as I would like it to be. The defense has gotten pressure at times. They didn't really get much pressure against Texas Southern, but for most of the season, they've been getting pressure at times. But the defense just really has to step up. And that's probably that's pretty much the issue with Southern is how this defense is going to go. You have a top 3 offense and a bottom half defense. Right now, they're ranging anywhere between 8 to 10 in almost every category. So defensively, they have to start pulling their weight, and it has to start this week. Devon Ben is the leading rusher right now, 71 carries, 364 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Kobe Dillon has come on strong. He's a converted quarterback. He's a pretty big guy. I never realized how big he was as a player. I thought he's a smaller quarterback type of guy, but he's a pretty big guy, and he's doing a good job these last couple weeks carrying the ball. He did have a costly fumble against Texas Southern, but I thought he carried the ball well for most of the game. He has 36 carries on the season for 253 yards and a touchdown. And he really has only gotten solid playing time since the Valley game. So most of these numbers come from Valley and Texas Southern. So he is running the ball a lot better these last couple of weeks. And I expect him to get the ball in his hands more and more as the season progresses, because Southern is still without Gerard Sims at running back. He has a foot injury and he's missed the first 5 games. And I haven't heard anything about if he's going to be available. So a guy being able to step in there and carry the ball is a big thing. And like I said, they use everybody, running backs, receivers, quarterbacks. Marquise McLean's a guy who had a big 65-yard run against Texas Southern. So he's a big body receiver that can run the ball as well. Jamal Washington, who missed the Texas Southern game with an injury, he's a smaller, speedy guy. They use him a lot for jet sweeps and getting him out in space. So the offense is playing, like I said, offense, I have no complaints with it at all. Bubba McDaniel's been steady. He hasn't been spectacular, but he's been pretty steady. He's 48 of 72, 6 touchdowns and 1 interception for 586 yards. Ladarius Skelton has been battling a knee issue. I think he's healthy this week, so you may see him get on the field from time to time. So that's a weapon as well if he's healthy and ready to go. Ethan Howard I still say he's one of the top tight ends in the league. I know everybody don't use tight ends, but he's one of the top tight ends in the league as a young guy. 14 catches, 210 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Marquise McLean, 10 catches, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jamal Washington, 16 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. They spread the ball around. There's any number of guys are gonna be on the field catching the ball. Now, who scares you enough to make you have to really account for them? That's still a work in progress. With the offense that Southern has, you may not ever have a guy like that, but the closest thing I think they have to that is Ethan Howard. Marquise McClain's a guy who's been getting better week in and week out. Because this is his really first real extended action in the spring and now. So he's getting better, week in and week out. He's a guy who can do those kind of things for you. But Southern obviously wants to run the ball. So if they can run the ball, they're not going to throw much. Defensively, like I said, it's a mixed bag. There's some talent there, but they're just not playing well. Cameron Peterson leads the team with 27 tackles. Ray Anderson 23, Chase Foster 23, Jordan Lewis 21, Tom Marie Smith 21, Davin Cotton 19. Tackle for loss, Lewis 7.5, 4 for Cotton, 3 for Tate, and 3 for Nash. Lewis 4.5 sacks on the season, 1.5 sack for Cotton, and then there's 4 guys with 1 sack, and the 2 interceptions are from Cotton and Papillon. So this team is a team, like I said, they're a team in flux. You really have to take this day by day, play by play with Southern because you just never know what you're gonna get. Pine Bluffs, a team who's probably reeling even worse. They are 1-4. They've lost 4 games in a row, 3 SWAC games in a row. They're 0-3 in conference play right now, and they're not looking, they're not looking good. They really are struggling right now to put together any kind of a game, whether you want to say a solid game or just a game in general. They're really not playing well at all, and they have their own issues with quarterback play. Skylar Perry has been a guy who hasn't really played well this season. He's had some issues. Xavier Vaughn has come in to relieve him, and they just haven't really got it going. The running game is up and down. They don't have a go-to guy, but they have talent. This is a very talented Pine Bluff team on both sides of the ball. So if you're a Southern fan, you really, you don't have any reason to sleep on anybody right now if you're Southern, but you really want to take these guys seriously because just because their record is what it is doesn't mean this team doesn't have talent. They're averaging 25 points per game. They're allowing 32. They have 138 yards per game on the ground. As an offense, they're allowing 130. As a defense, passing, they're passing for 208 per game on the season, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Defensively, 291 through the air, 13 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. 347 yards for Pine Bluff in total offense. The opponents, 421 per game. Both teams over 5 yards per play. Third down conversions, Pine Bluff is 26%. That's, something that is obviously an issue. 27% on 4th down, so they're just not converting anything at all. 7 fumbles on the season, giving them 12 turnovers. So they're definitely turning the ball over a lot. The opponents, 44% on 3rd downs and 28% on 4th downs with 2 fumbles, giving them a total of 7 turnovers. Pine Bluff has 13 sacks on the season, and they've allowed 4. So this line for the last 2 or 3 years has been very good at protecting the quarterback, and that still is the case here. Kiera Crossley leads the team with 45 carries for 217 yards and 5 touchdowns. Kayvon Britton, 40 carries, 159 yards and a touchdown, and Skylar Perry, 33 carries for 157 yards. Perry, like I said, right now he's the leading passer. He's completing 45% of his passes, and that obviously is not going to get it done. 156 attempts, and you're only completing 45% of your passes. That's just not going to do it. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for him. Xavier Vaughn, 10 of 19 on the season, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. So somebody has to find a way to be consistent. Receivers need to step up as well. Josh Wilkes is the leading receiver, along with DeJuan Miller. They both have 16 catches. Miller, 180 yards. Wilkes, 281. Wilkes, 2 touchdowns. Damon Dawkins has 10 catches for 162 yards on the season. A guy I would like to see get more involved is Tyron Ralph. He's a smaller guy, but he's a all-purpose type of guy, and he hasn't really made any plays yet this season. So he does have a 65-yard kickoff return um, to his record this year, but he's a guy that has to get going either on offense or special teams for this team to be for this team to excel. Monroe Beard is the leading tackler on the team with 38 tackles. Thigpen 31, Akins 28. Beard leads the team in tackles for loss with 5.5, Akins 4.5, Peppers 3.5. Beard also leads in sacks, and interceptions is Fuller. So this game, obviously, like I said, this is two teams who are both like not trending in the right way. But I still think Southern has the better team right now. Southern's issues, like I said, I think they can iron them out. Pine Bluff can too, and it's going to be homecoming, so I know Pine Bluff's going to be fired up. But I hesitantly picked Southern to win this game, 31-30. The defense scares the hell out of me right now. I'm very nervous anytime the opponent gets the ball because I just know that they're probably going to score. So this is going to be a who scores last. I think Southern scores last and they win. The next game we have is Bethune-Cookman hosting Prairie View. The two teams from the furthest reaches of the conference on each end meet up in Daytona for a 12 o'clock kickoff on the Cat Eye Network. These two teams, obviously, again, two teams going in different directions. Prairie View is 3-0 in the conference, 4-1 overall, and they're playing very good football on both sides of the ball. They're running for 184 yards per game. I think they're second in the league right now. 4.2 yards per carry. They're allowing 95 yards rushing, so they're doing a good job stopping the run. 263 through the air for the Panthers, 8 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and they're allowing 171 yards through the air, 8 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Total offense 447 per game for the Panthers, 5.9 yards per play, 266 for the opponents, 4 yards per play. Third downs per view, 37% and 64% on fourth downs. They fumbled 4 times on the season, giving them 10 turnovers, and they have 13 sacks. The opponents have a 28% third down conversion rate, so they're doing a very good job of keeping teams from moving down the field, and 46% on fourth down with 2 fumbles gained by the Panthers, and opponents have 7 sacks. So they're doing a good job of protecting the quarterback. Juwan Pass is a guy who is mobile, so he can run the ball really well. So he's limiting his opportunities of getting sacked. Right now, Lindamian Brooks is the leading leading rusher with 39 carries for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pass 47 carries, 199 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Mosley 41 carries, 192 yards. Also, Jaden Stewart 48 carries. 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they have 4 guys with almost 40 carries. So they have multiple people who can run the ball. Pass 95 of 154, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 1,281 yards. So definitely he's playing well, passing the ball. As long as he limits his turnovers, then his offense is pretty efficient. Antonio Mullins and Jalen Howard are basically the guys to look out for. Howard has a 25.5 yard average per reception, 3 touchdowns, big play guy, 11 catches. Mullins is the possession guy, 24 catches, 318, and 2 touchdowns. Defensively, I really love their defense. They're a top 3 defense with Florida A&M and Jackson State. I think those are the top 3 defenses. The reverse would probably be the order that I picked: Jackson State, FAMU, then Prairie View, but that 2 and 3 can be debated. Jackson is obviously the number 1 defense, but Drake Cheatham leads the team with 34 tackles. Trayshawn Smith 31, Darius Campbell 23, Bryce Turner 23, Jesse Evans 22. Jason Dumas has 6 tackles for loss. He's a beast on the defensive line. I mean, he's been really solid the last couple years, so he's definitely a disruptor. Campbell 5.5 tackles for loss, and Powell 5.5 tackles for loss. Green with 4 sacks. Dumas 3.5, Powell 2.5, and Green 2. Interceptions: Logan Jackson with 2, James and Smith each have 1. So this team is playing well. This is a very solid team, and they obviously are a front runner for the division. They're playing a Bethune-Cookman team who's moving in the totally opposite direction. They're 0-6 right now, 0-3 in conference. They're coming off of a loss at home to Valley on homecoming. So they have some issues going on. They are really not playing, they're not playing consistently. They are averaging 109 yards on the ground, 211 yards allowed for the opponents rushing, 236 through the air for Bethune-Cookman, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The opponents 258 through the air, 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, 345 yards total offense for the Wildcats, 6.1 yards per play. The opponents 469 yards per game and 6.2 yards per play. 33% third down conversion rate for the Wildcats, 40% for the opponents. 40% for the Wildcats on fourth down, 49% conversion rate for Bethune-Cookman's opponents on third down, and their opponents are 100% on fourth down, 10 for 10. So if you get to a fourth down, you're probably going to convert because they haven't stopped anybody yet, although they haven't really stopped anybody on fourth down either. They have 6 fumbles on the season, and the opponents have 4. They have 11 sacks, so the defense is doing a good job of getting pressure on the quarterback, but they just can't stop anybody. The opponents have 10 sacks, so that shows another reason why this team is struggling to move the ball consistently. Quayshawn Bird leads the team with 49 carries for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Devin Black, 17 carries, 205 yards and a touchdown. Jimmy Robinson, the third, 26 carries, 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. Shannon Patrick is still the leading passer right now, but Devin Black started the last 2 games. I think he started last game and came in reserve against South Carolina State. So he's 27 of 53, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 461 yards. So he hasn't turned the ball over that much, but they still just cannot win. Kamari Everett is a guy I like a lot at tight end. He has 29 catches for 542 yards and 5 touchdowns. Marcus Riley, 15 catches, 175 yards and 1 touchdown. Ontario Johnson leads the defense with 47 tackles. To Kevin Thomas, 46. Those 2 guys are basically around the ball all the time. As you see, the gap between those 2 and the next guy is pretty big. Ratliff has 28 tackles and Sutherland has 28. So almost a 20 tackle difference between those guys. So they definitely are around the ball all the time. Thomas, 7 tackles for loss. Mason Hill, 4.5. Johnson, 3.5. Sacks, Thomas with 2. Brown, 1.5. Sutherland, 1.5. And the interceptions come from Thomas, Sutherland, and Hill Robinson. So this game, obviously, it's easy to say Prairie View's going to win this game going away, but it's a road game, and this is a pretty long trip for them. So this is the first trip out to the extremes of the East Division. Bethune-Cookman is a wounded animal. Obviously, they're dangerous, but they just scare me, man, and not in a good way. They scare me because I just feel like they are not able to consistently do anything. And when you are like that, you are you're ripe for defeat. And I think this week, Prairie View goes to Daytona and gets them a nice victory. I think I'm gonna say Prairie View is gonna win this game 27-10. So I think Prairie View gets the dub in this game, and they continue their lead in the SWAC West as they head into their stretch run. Our next game is a game that is surprisingly probably a better game it's probably a better game than a lot of people expected at this point. It's still not a great game, but it's a game with some added intrigue due to both teams knocking off teams that are ahead of them in the standings, and that's Texas Southern and Grambling, which is a 2:00 kickoff for this game. It's homecoming at Grambling, so this is a big game for them. 2:00 kickoff. So both teams are not, the records aren't great, but Texas Southern's been playing better the last 2 weeks. They obviously had beat North American, and then they beat Southern on Saturday, so they're playing better. They have a tremendous young quarterback in Andrew Boddy that everybody is hyping up. I think he's going to be a superstar in this league as he continues to get better week in and week out. So that he definitely changes the mentality of this offense. He commands this offense and plays very well. But to me, the issue for Texas Southern is defense. They don't stop anybody. If they had any kind of defense, they probably would have won the Southern game pretty comfortably. Now they did have 2 fumbles in crucial situations, but that's a mark of a game that happens to teams pretty often. So they're playing, like I said, they're another team who has a pretty good offense, but the defense is just not where it needs to be. 149 yards per game for the offense. Rushing, the opponents are rushing for 305, so they're just getting gashed on the ground. 249 through the air passing. They only have 2 touchdowns on the season through the air. As far as the statistics go, now you got to remember the stats from the North American game don't count, so this is only the stats from the other games that they played, not the North American game. But they have 2 touchdowns and 1 interception on the season. Opponents 281 through the air, 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. 398 total offense for the Tigers of Texas Southern, and 5.7 yards per play. The opponents 587 yards of offense and 7.8 yards per play. Again, that defense has got to step up. That's just gonna hold this offense back. They're gonna have to win shootouts on the way this defense plays. Third down conversions, 31% for the Tigers and 36 on 4th down. They fumbled 4 times. Already have 5 sacks. The opponents 42% on 3rd downs and 80% on 4th downs with 5 fumbles and 7 sacks. Again, they have quite a few guys who can run the ball well. Andrew Boddy is a strong runner now. He has a 214 yards at this portion of the season, 5.5 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns. Howard 139 yards and 3 touchdowns. Owens 99 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kevin Harris is a guy who's getting some time, 98 carries for 2 touchdowns. Boddy 52 or 80. No, right now he doesn't have any passing touchdowns, but he only has 1 interception, 715 yards, completing 65% of his passes. So that's a good number. Keelan Davis is the guy right now, 22 catches, 403 yards. No touchdowns yet. Again, no touchdowns on the records right now. Jaron Johnson, 14 catches, 177 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Giles, 16 catches, 111 yards and a touchdown. Defensively, they have some talent on this defense, but they just aren't getting the stops. They are, just like I said, they're just getting gashed. Matthew Williams leads the team with 26 tackles. Tariq Cooper, a guy who's very good, 25 tackles. Julian Marcantel, 19 tackles. Tyler Martinez, 19 tackles. Tackle for loss, Cooper, 3.5. He also leads the team in sacks with 1, along with Hamilton, Martinez, and Frazier. And their interceptions are by Marcantel, Walker, and Murray. They're facing the Grambling team, who is still trying to find that offense, but Grambling's defense is sneakily good. They're pretty solid on defense. They have a very good defensive line. I was pointed that out by somebody a couple of weeks ago, and now I see it because I'm paying a little bit more attention to what their defense is doing. But the offensive issues overshadow what Grambling does defensively. Offensively, it's getting better, but it's still a ways to go. 85 yards on the ground per game, 113 through the air, still not good numbers. 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They're averaging 2.8 yards per carry. Defensively, 168 yards on the ground, 4.2 yards per carry. 220 yards per game passing, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions for the opponents. Grambling right now is still averaging below 200 yards per game on offense. That's unheard of, honestly. I mean, it's like when Valley was very, very bad and averaging negative yards rushing per game, they still had a higher total offense yard per game than this. 199, 3.5 yards per play. The opponent's 389, 5.5 yards per play. Third downs, 21% for Grambling. Obviously, they're not converting third downs right now. And 20% on 4th downs. The opponents, 34% on third downs and 53% on 4th downs. Grambling has allowed 16 sacks and they have 10 on the season. They're led in rushing right now by Darquez Breton, 37 carries, 152 yards, 57 yards, and no touchdowns. Noah Biden has come on as the starter. He was relieved by Alden Clark in the Alcorn game. But I think Biden's going to be the guy going forward. So that makes for a nice young quarterback battle in this game. The two freshmen going at it. Receiving, Greg White leads the team right now with 12 catches for 197 yards and a touchdown. Kobe Ross, 14 catches, 157 yards and a touchdown. Blake Thomas is the leading tackler with 33. Brian Powell leads the team with 6 tackles for loss. Lewis leads the team with 3 sacks, and the interceptions they have 6 guys with 1 interception. So there are a lot of guys who are going after the ball, which is a staple of Grambling football. So this game is an interesting game. It's a sneakily good game, at least on not so much on paper, but at least right now with the momentum of both teams. Grambling, is still a dangerous team, and they're playing at home. Texas Southern got a big win against Southern. I want to see how they follow that up. Grambling is still dangerous. Obviously, the offense is not that good, but this Texas Southern defense could be what is the cure for what ails them. So I think right now I'm gonna go with Grambling playing at home in front of the homecoming crowd. I think they get the W. I think it's gonna be a game, not crazy numbers. I think Grambling's gonna win 26-20. I think it will be a pretty entertaining game. I think both quarterbacks will put on the show, but I think Grambling's defense is the difference maker in this game. So I think Grambling gets that victory. The next game that we're going to talk about is Mississippi Valley hosting Alcorn. Valley obviously has come on pretty strong these last couple of weeks, defeating North Carolina Central for homecoming and then spoiling Bethune-Cookman's homecoming. This game is a 3 o'clock kickoff, so a nice afternoon game. Valley is going to be dangerous. They play hard. They're physical. They don't wow you on offense, but they're a team who can, they can get guys out in space and make some plays. But they're playing an Alcorn team right now that's 3-2 and 2-0, and the offense is starting to find its form. 136 yards per game rushing on the season and 228 through the air passing, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The offense is averaging 3.6 yards per carry, so there's still some room for improvement right there. 137 yards rushing allowed, 4 yards per carry. They're allowing 204 through the air, 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Total offense, Alcorn, 366 and 5.5 yards per play. The opponents, 341 and 5.3 yards per play. Third down, Alcorn at 27%. As you can see, a lot of teams right now are having horrible third down conversion rates. The opponents have 34% conversion, so they do a good job of getting off the field. They have lost 2 fumbles on the season. They have recovered 10 fumbles, so they are doing a good job of getting on that ball when it gets loose. They have 5 sacks, and they've allowed 17, so that's not quite Alcorn numbers. That offensive line is still an issue, and that's going to have to be fixed. Nico Duffy is the leading rusher with 428 on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Stafford Anderson, 20 carries for 163 yards, no touchdowns yet. Felix Harper, obviously, is the straw that stirs the drink. He's completing 57% of his passes with 8 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, 1,141 yards. Lots of guys to go to at receiver. Charles Pringle, 4 touchdowns, 350 yards. C.J. Bowler, 1 touchdown, 317 yards, 22-yard average per catch. Juan Anthony, 178 yards and a touchdown. Manny Jones is a guy that can also make some plays. Defensively, they're still not where they normally would be, but they're getting there. Kieron Kinsler leads the team with 35 tackles on the season. Cherilus, 6.5 tackles for loss. And he also has one of their 5 sacks on the season. So interceptions, they have 3 guys with interceptions right now. Valley coming in, like I said, they're playing better. They really are starting to improve, and they just are doing some solid things right now. They still aren't great statistically, but they have some dangerous weapons. Like I said, they have one of the better running backs in Caleb Johnson, who I like a lot. Jelani Easton's a guy who can run the ball at quarterback and he can make some plays. He's not gonna wow you with his arm, but he can get loose and he can make some plays. Jarius Clayton, Ja'Cory Rankin, and Malik Myers are the three top receivers. The defense is very salty. Dion Reed leads the team in tackles. Um, Tackles for loss, Jalen Bell and Valmy Soignier, sacks. Thomas and Bell lead with that. And there are four guys with interceptions. And that's not even counting Jared Garner, who's a guy who is a major factor on this team. So I like Valley a lot, but right now, this game, I think Alcorn is too much for them. I think Alcorn will find their footing in this game. I think it's going to be a close game early because Valley, like I said, Valley is very tough at home and they are very aggressive. But I think Alcorn will find a way to weigh them down. I think the running game will continue to get going, and that will put them over the top in this one. So I think Alcorn wins this game 30-17. I think I don't think it's going to get too out of hand, but because I think Valley's going to do a good job of staying close in this game. The next game we have is Alabama A&M, who is now on a 2-game slide, hosting Florida A&M in a game I thought would be one of the top games of the season, but after last Saturday, obviously that is out the window. This game is a 1:00 kickoff, ESPN Plus broadcast. FAMU has a very strong defense. As I said earlier, I think they have one of the top 3 defenses in the conference. They aren't allowing much, 102 yards on the ground they're allowing, and 153 through the air, giving them 256 total. So they aren't giving up anything. They have only allowed 2 passing touchdowns and 6 interceptions. The offense is still not great, but they're finding their way. The running game is getting better, 145 yards per game on the ground, 192 through the air, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 4.9 yards per play for the Rattlers, 337 yards per game. They converting 32% of third downs and 33 on fourth. The opponent's 28 on fourth down and 14 on fourth. You cannot convert against these guys. So their defense is just really playing well. They have 17 sacks on the season, and they allowed 9. Again, the defense is very, very good, and I think this is going to be the big difference maker in this game. Offensively, Bishop Barnett leads the team with 313 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's having 5.9 yards per carry. This running game has came a long way from the 2019 running game. I like it a lot. Rashawn McKay is growing week by week. 57% completion rate, 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. So he's taking care of the football. He's doing exactly what they want him to do. Xavier Smith, 33 catches, 291 yards, 1 touchdown. David Manigo, 17 catches, 211 yards. And Jamare Sherrard, 19 catches, 134 yards and a touchdown. Kamari Young has 3 touchdowns on the season and only 5 catches. So he's been very efficient with what they give him. So he takes advantage of every opportunity. This defense, it's tough, man. Marquise Bell leads the team with 31 tackles. Isaiah Land and 22 tackles. Fagan, 21. Collier, 19. And Mayweather, 19. Land, 11 tackles for loss and 10 sacks on the season. So you have to know what number 31 is at all times. Alabama A&M, Jackson State sacked y'all 10 times. So I'm not saying it's going to be a performance like that, but it's going to be close if you don't protect Glass better in this game, because Land is definitely occupying all land in the backfield. So he's definitely a guy you need to know where he is at all times. You need to put 31 on everybody on your scout team defense so they know where 31 is at all times, because he's just going to cause a lot of issues in this game. Alabama A&M, if Southern is a very sketchy defense, they have the worst defense in the league right now. They are 3-2 right now and 1-2 in conference. Like I said, they're on a 2-game slide, and they got bombed by Jackson State. It's not a lot to even say about that game. 10 sacks allowed. The defense is porous. If you watch B.J. Jones, he had a live stream the other day, and he made a statement that I didn't realize. He said that every game that Alabama A&M played, the opponent had a season high in yards and points. So FAMU, your yardage and points, your season high in both of those could possibly be broken this week. I think the most you scored this season was 34 against Fort Valley State. So you could top that against this Alabama A&M defense. They don't stop anybody. It's a disservice to what the offense does. They are obviously a passing offense, 363 through the air, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. They run for 90 yards per game, 2.9 yards per carry. Defensively, they're allowing 176 on the ground, 5.5 yards per carry, and 230 through the air, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Total offense, 453 for the Bulldogs, 5.9 yards per play, 406 yards for the opponents, 6.6 yards per play. Third downs, the opponents are converting 38%. Now, that's not a bad number, but they just give up so many big plays on defense. 40% third down conversion. They have 6 sacks on the season, so they're not really getting to the quarterback, and they've allowed 18. Now, 10 of those averages from one game, but still, there's still a good amount of times that glass has been hit. The last 2 weeks, Alabama A&M has lost. Glass has been hit a lot and made uncomfortable. Garrett Quarles is the leading rusher, 478 and 4 touchdowns. Obviously, Akil Glass stirs the drink. 16 touchdowns on the season, 1,804 yards, 6 interceptions. The turnovers still are an issue. He fumbles due to hits. Adu Hilaire, Ibrahim, D. Anderson, Brian Jenkins Jr., Zabrion Moore, Garrett Quarles, Kendrick Johnson. All those names are very capable. Cameron Young, all those names are very capable of hurting you in the pass game. I really don't even really want to go over defensive numbers because it's so disappointing at the effort that they put on week in and week out. This team can get better on defense, and they have to right away. They brought in a lot of transfers. Those guys haven't really gelled that much. Now, Trinell Troutman has played very well for this defense. He has 29 tackles on the season, 6 tackles for loss, and 3 interceptions. So that's your defensive MVP for this team right now. But they just don't stop anybody. They allow too many yards and too many points. And so I think FAMU is going to win this game because I think this defense is going to give A&M problems again. I'm going to say 35-17. I think the Rattlers topped their season high in points, and they have a pretty good running game in this game. So I like FAMU in this one. And that brings us to our final game. I picked this game as my game of the week, but not necessarily because of the actual game on the field. I picked it as my game of the week for the foolery, and I'm really eager to see. This is the Jackson State revenge tour, and they got mad petty against A&M, but they asked for it. So Alabama State was pretty petty after their victory over Jackson State. So I know Coach Prime and those guys are going to be waiting to make sure all the lights in the Mississippi Veteran Memorial Stadium work on the scoreboard. So I'm sure they're gonna, if they get an opportunity, they're gonna try to bury A&M. Now Alabama A&M is a team who is the definition of inconsistency. They play a good game, then a bad game, then a good game, then a bad game, pretty much year in and year out. They had a good game Saturday against Pine Bluff. So this, at least according to trend, is the bad game, and boy, it's a bad week for it. Offensively, they still are struggling. They have changed quarterbacks. I believe Ryan Nettles has been hurt. I think he got hurt in the last game. And Miles Crowley came in and had a very good game. But it's going to be tough against the Jackson defense. The running game is still not where it needs to be. Somebody has to get going, for them to have any kind of success against Jackson State. The run game has to get going. They're only averaging 89 yards per game. I like their defense a lot. They're big, they're physical. Their defensive backs are pretty good. Christian Clark is a fire plug in the middle. Ershaw Davis is a big-time guy. But I think this defense, can keep them in the game. Right now they're averaging 165 yards rushing by the opponents and 160 yards through the air. So I think this defense can make some plays, but I just feel like Jackson State defense is just going to stymie them too much because their offense is so inconsistent. Now, the Jackson State, pretty much what to expect from them, obviously, is a bombardment on defense. They're gonna blitz you, and with a guy who is not that experienced in Crowley, and if Nettles is healthy, another guy who's not that consistent as a passer, they're gonna feast. I mean, Alabama State's offensive line has had some issues with sacks, so they're gonna feast. They've allowed 11 sacks on the season. Defensively, they have 12, so they do a good job of getting after the quarterback, but they're not protecting the quarterback either. So they already have one shutout on their record. I don't think this game is going to be a shutout, but I think Jackson's going to win it. That Jackson State defense right now, they have 12. They have 26 sacks. That's obviously 10 in one game, but still 16 in the rest of your game. So they get after your quarterback. They're going to put up pretty solid pounding on the Alabama State's quarterbacks. The offense was very good against Alabama A&M, but like I said, that's Alabama A&M. So I think they'll be better this week as well. T.C. Taylor calling the offense has mixed some things up. Now there is film now of that, but how much can somebody make stops in a week? We'll find out. I think Alabama State defense is going to keep this a close game for the most part, but I just don't see their offense really getting anything going. So I think Jackson's going to complete the Alabama sweep and the petty tour through Alabama. They're probably going to give Coach Ely a shoe after the game. I'm quite sure Prime probably got a shoe in a box somewhere, just waiting to give it to him to take back to Montgomery. I think Jackson State's going to win this game. I think the offense is going to play better. Probably not as good as they did against A&M, but I would like the running game to continue to get better. Santee Marshall and Martin should really get the bulk of the carries for this team. And like I said, they have a nice, solid receiving core, all who can hurt you. And Shador obviously is driving this car very well. So I think Jackson State is gonna play well. I think they're gonna give a homecoming crowd something to look forward to. And I think, like I said, I think Alabama State's gonna be game, but I just don't think they're gonna be enough offensively to even really stay in this game past halftime. I think Jackson State wins this game 45. I'm going to say 43 because their field goal kicking has been not good. 43-14. I think the game will be close at half. Probably a two-score game at half. But I think Jackson State is going to really overwhelm them in the second half. So that's going to do it for our Week 7 preview. Tomorrow, live edition, Swag Smoke, 6 o'clock. Also, my birthday tomorrow, so I'll be celebrating a lot. So looking forward to a good show. And hopefully I get a Southern win for my birthday. They tend to play well on my birthday, so my birthday weekend. So let's hope that happens. Week 7 recap on Sunday. So we are moving pretty quickly through the season. So without anything else to say, I'm C. Wells. I'm getting up out of here. Man, y'all enjoy y'all Wednesday. And if you're going to a game, man, please be safe on the road if you have to travel. Just be safe in general. And hopefully, enjoy yourself. There's a couple homecomings this week. There's 3 homecomings right now. Jackson State homecoming, Grambling homecoming, Pine Bluff homecoming. And so this is homecoming season. So enjoy. And I'll see you guys on Thursday for a live edition of Swag Smoke. I'm out.